Okay, so seem to always have the need to have an OIM external web application of some kind. So what I did was I put together an app using Struts2, Spring, and Hibernate. Had to use an older version so it would deploy on 10.3.6 WebLogic as is. But AppFuse is pretty cool because it'll basically create a starter web app for you with any of the frameworks that it supports. So out of the box you can build a WAR and deploy it, and you have role-based JDBC authentication out of the box with enough of the pages to maintain that data for authentication. And then it's up to you, of course, to write the rest of it that you need for all the other tables and data you want to maintain. So I've done other videos where I've used AppFuse before, but changed the authentication to use LDAP. That's usually the most popular thing you have to do. And since AppFuse comes with Spring Security, it's easy to switch it to that. So what we have here now is since we're going to be using this for OIM, there's really no need for it to have, because AppFuse, it's all bolted together where the authentication is tied to the database you're also going to be loading your custom data into. But with OIM, that's not always the case. So most times we don't even need a database. We just need to use the API to get to the data, but we will need various means of authentication, and a way to get to the API that's convenient in a Struts application. And so that's essentially what I've done here. So I've kind of started with AppFuse and then started removing things that aren't needed and putting things in that are needed to build an OIM application. Okay, so one of the first things is security. So I have a single security file that where these are the definitions of the URLs that Spring will protect. Okay, and you see here that we allow role anonymous to run the reclaim. Okay, so, and you can also run it if you're logged in if you want. So now, no matter what security we use, this always needs to be protected. So the other security files can be swapped out just by doing an include. So our local security is no database involved, and it just has these 3 users. This one is in here because this one has an OIM account on my VM system. Okay, so what we're doing here is this web app is running in WebLogic on my local machine, but it's talking to the OIM over here in my VM. Alright, so now, so what we're doing is we can log in with this user ID and password, and when we pull up the OIM user information, the action class is going to OIM and looking for this user, assuming it's the same one. So now if we were doing LDAP, it would be the same assumption. All you'd have to do is go to the security file, change this include to be LDAP, and you'll be using Spring LDAP authentication with roles from the LDAP server. So in which case it will be the same. The SAM account here will be what's assumed to be the OIM account. JDBC would be the same. You want to authenticate to an external database. This is also users and roles. Spring will do this for you automatically. And then of course you can use Spring Jazz to authenticate, and you can authenticate straight to WebLogic. So this tends to, you're going to pretty much be required to deploy this on WebLogic at that point. You could get it to work, I think, in a remote environment, but it's really better if you're running on WebLogic to do it. So if you're deployed on Tomcat, you'll have to do some work to get this to work. This will work out of the box on WebLogic. Okay, so now when you look at these security files, you're going to see things like this and like this, where you can configure them. So all of these come out of a properties file. So we have a JDBC properties file where everything is configured. So you would configure everything in here, and then Spring is set up using a properties configurer that lets you specify the values like this. So you can have different properties files that have